Hello, hey everyone. My name is Kir. I'm a head of BD at BR Group, and here today we're gonna have another AMA session, and we're gonna speak about crypto regulation in 2023. Today my guest is Vlad Kardapoltsev, CEO of PointPay. Vlad, please welcome. Please tell our listeners about yourself and about PointPay as well.
Hello, Kia. I'm very glad to be here. So first of all, I'm the CEO of PointPay. It's a crypto exchange. We were number 22, nearing 20, around the world. So we're getting there. Developing very, very fast. We started out in 2018. But yeah, we are getting there, and you will probably hear more about us very, very soon. But about me, I was I've never had a job outside of this industry. Straight out of uni, I went to and worked for a crypto development fund. And then after a couple of startups, I started heading the PointPay exchange. So and I think today we're going to be talking about the crypto regulation worldwide. I have witnessed pretty much every single regulation that has ever happened because I used to work in business development, and there was quite a lot of legal aspects to it. And I've seen the industry from having no regulation at all to what is happening now, which is, I think, a welcome change.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for sharing about your background. And I actually was quite anticipated for this AMA session because the crypto regulation in 2023, it's like a cornerstone for lots of countries. And firstly, I want to ask you, what do you think, the main trends or like the most important events that we already had in 2023, and what are we looking forward till the end of this year?
Well, as I mentioned in my introduction, this year was quite heavy on regulation, I think, because ever since crypto became more or less mainstream, and when everybody started to hear about it, there was no regulation at all. And now we are kind of experiencing very big shifts in the kind of global cryptocurrency regulation, which is incredibly welcome. And this year so far, I would probably highlight 5 aspects. It's first of all the developments in the US. Second of all, it's the developments in the European Union, which is incredibly welcome, long overdue, and I think everybody in the industry is glad that this is happening on the EU-wide level and not on the kind of individual countries level. And probably venturing out further afield, I would mention Dubai, UAE, that they've introduced the digital asset center in Dubai, to regulate the cryptocurrencies, so the cryptocurrencies would be able to come there. And obviously, since there was a war in Ukraine, quite a lot of crypto companies from Eastern Europe went on to work in Dubai. So I think that's quite good on them to put it all in writing. And additionally, you don't have to pay taxes there. So quite a lot of crypto bros are hanging out in Dubai at the moment. And obviously, the fact that they've regulated it somewhat adds to it. And so we've mentioned the US, the EU, and Dubai, the Middle East, and probably the noteworthy things to mention would be China. Even though in China the cryptocurrencies are banned, and but we still think that quite a lot of people from China are still using cryptocurrencies. But nonetheless, Hong Kong, so that's the territory inside of China. So it's part of China, but it's kind of outside of China. It's autonomous, and they kind of acknowledge the crypto regulations. Quite a lot of crypto companies were already established there because of the tax incentives, and because they've beforehand they've recognized that cryptocurrencies are financial assets on par with the normal currencies, which meant that people could operate. But now they're regulating the exchanges, they're regulating the wallets, which is a welcome change as well. So we will see, I think, quite a lot of even though there are quite a lot of companies already registered in China because of that, in Hong Kong, I think we will see more companies being registered there. And I think, I hope that China will be opening up the crypto market as well. And I think last thing to mention would probably be Japan. So Japan already had some very robust regulations, but because quite a lot of the two main exchanges, one of them was Liquid, went bust. They kind of changed the approach about the way that they were doing things, and they've eased the tax burden of the tax regulation there as well. And one thing to mention about, so let's go back to the US. This year we saw quite a lot of cases against quite big kind of market players within the US, and the Securities and Exchange Commission was saying that certain tokens were securities, not utilities. But it was all very confusing, because one government agency was suing those companies and saying that certain things were securities, and then the other agency was suing them and saying exactly the opposite thing, and everything was confusing. And I think quite a lot of companies exited the market, like for example the BUSDT. They didn't want to deal with all of that, and I think now we're kind of waiting for a regulation, not state level regulation, but a federal level regulation in America, which is long overdue. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon with the election cycle coming in. So I don't know. And probably lastly, as I already mentioned, in the EU, they've introduced the Markets and Crypto Assets Regulation, the MiCA or MiCAR. I've heard that acronym before. And pretty much it's a comprehensive regulation Europe-wide, which is a good thing because it's not very stringent. Because before, kind of the way that the European Union works, if one country regulated something and if it doesn't contravene the EU law or the local law, another state within the union has to accept it. So quite a lot of crypto companies were registered in Estonia for a while. Then they stopped that because they've changed their regulation. Now quite a lot of companies are registered in Lithuania. So if your company is registered in Lithuania, you're able to operate within other states, which is kind of very useful. And there was some crypto regulation in Malta as well, but it's quite expensive. So only the big players were kind of doing it. So now we hope with the new regulation, more and more companies will kind of open up. And I think last thing to mention, so I already mentioned 5, would probably be the UK. So in the UK, they already had the regulation with the it's kind of not very stringently regulated. It's mostly regulated like in the US with regards to what classifies as a security or what classifies as a utility. And there are quite a lot of rules about the ways that you have to keep the user data and kind of the transaction amount and stuff like that. But most crypto exchanges were compliant with that. But this year, government of Rishi Sunak was pushing really hard on establishing a digital pound, and they've introduced, the Bank of England is now creating a task force. They were trying to hire, they called him a crypto tsar. I don't know why, but they were trying to hire quite a lot of people within the industry in order to establish the feasibility of the digital pound, which I think is a very good move. They haven't decided anything yet, but they're saying that by the end of this year, maybe the middle of next year, they're going to establish whether it is feasible, because this is something that is being worked on in other big jurisdictions. And obviously now with Brexit, and the pound being slightly weaker, they're trying to look for other ways in order to kind of reestablish themselves within the kind of a fintech sphere. Sorry for talking for 10 minutes but that's kind of a brief overview of what I think was quite important within the regulatory framework of cryptocurrencies, crypto exchanges, and etc.
No, that's all right. I mean, that's the reason why we do have this session to discuss it, and we just started it, and you already, highlighted lots of points and raised a lot of thoughts, even in my mind, because, me personally, I'm a lawyer, an international one. And I spent some years working with international transactions and in crypto. So that's why this topic is, so fascinating to me personally. So, right. What do you think about the whole Hong Kong and China regulation, and how do you think the regulation in general can affect the crypto market, the cryptocurrency market? I just want to discuss with you a bit.
The Chinese market used to be open, and obviously, when you have 1 billion people, it's a huge market. So, but they decided to close it. I think it didn't align with their kind of the Communist Party agenda, that people were spending money. The Chinese, the way that, communist governments work, they want to have control over everything. So, in certain, obviously they have, those kind of face controls, what people, this kind of social order controls. They control the banks, they control the way that people spend money, and they control quite a lot of things. And obviously, if you're trying to venture out into a decentralized world, the big party, Communist Party government would hate that. So they, there used to be quite a lot of exchanges in China. They were banned. So I think what might happen is something along the lines of a kind of a Turkish scenario, or like a Japanese or something like that scenario. So they would have an internal exchange where people, it would be somewhat connected to the government, where people will be able to see how people buy Bitcoin, why people buy Bitcoin, and the transactions. They want to probably tie in the tax system there, but it hasn't been developed. I've heard some things about that. I'm not sure whether it's true, but I've heard some things that, some people are saying that China wants to establish their own kind of a big exchange where it will only be available for the Chinese people, and where things like WeChat and all of their tax systems and kind of all of their internal communist control systems will be tied into that exchange itself, and it will be closed off from the rest of us. And obviously Hong Kong is a slightly different jurisdiction, quite a lot of international companies. That's the history of Hong Kong is quite interesting. It used to belong to the British, and I think in 1997 or 1994, I can't remember, but sometime in the 90s, it was passed from Britain to China. And that's why there are still quite a lot of, independent judiciary there, which China is trying to kind of curb. And the Chinese people, for example, are not able to even move to Hong Kong because they have a different level of freedoms. They can vote. Internationally, quite a lot of people come to China, to come to Hong Kong. You would need a separate visa if you've ever visited Hong Kong. You would need a separate visa for Hong Kong and China. So it's a completely different jurisdiction, kind of within China, and it's most certainly more open towards foreigners. I've myself registered a couple of companies in Hong Kong in my time, and it's very open. You can go in and you can have a look at the shareholders. So it's a kind of this hangover from the British rules that they used to have until the 90s. So they still maintain some good company ledgers, and the foreigners are able to establish companies there without any problems. But in China, for example, establishing a company in China as a foreigner, it's next to impossible, because you would need a Chinese person being it's very complex. So people would usually establish a company in Hong Kong, and that would be it. So, and quite a lot of people don't understand, the spending habits of Chinese people, and et cetera. So yeah, that's why I think they've decided to regulate Hong Kong differently, because quite a lot of companies that operate in Singapore and in all of this kind of other Asia regions, they're actually registered in Hong Kong because of the tax incentives and because of the old British judiciary, where you are still able to get some kind of decent, the Communist Party can't just come and steal your company like they do in China, because in Hong Kong it's all very transparent, more or less. There is still quite a lot of control from China, obviously, but it's more or less open towards the foreigners, and I think the Chinese like it that way. I think that's why they've regulated Hong Kong differently and quite leniently, but I think they would do something completely different for people in China, and I think most foreigners won't be able to access it at all. But we hear about things like that from Russia apparently is trying to establish a digital ruble. They've passed a law saying that they're establishing that thing, and maybe it would be tied into crypto. And I think quite a lot of jurisdictions with weaker currencies are trying to establish something similar, and they're trying to establish an internal exchange. One of the things, for example, I was in Turkey not that while ago, and you go through this huge airport that they have, and everywhere you can see this the Turkish cryptocurrency exchange being advertised everywhere, and they're trying to close down all of the exchanges that do not comply with their internal rules, and they're kind of trying to carve in the market for just one exchange, so the government would be able to control what's going on there. That obviously defeats the purpose of cryptocurrencies, because of decentralization and kind of moving away from the government institutions. But I think that was quite inevitable that the governments would be coming over and trying to reach for personal information of people, and I think that will expand even further in due course. So
yeah, that's great. I most definitely support the ideas that you just shared. And well, I'm still quite fascinated about the idea that, well, probably China gonna have or could have this like national exchange, like the biggest and the only one, which is quite logic. I mean, well, due to all the other processes, which is quite logic. Well, nothing surprising, but just the first time that I've heard about it. So, and what do you think?
Those are rumors. Those are rumors from people who I know. I don't think it's been in the public, but those are rumors that I've heard from other people. Maybe it's a complete fabrication, but I think it's quite a logical step for them to take in the future.
Do you understand that these rumors are being live streaming to YouTube right now? So we
you heard it from me first.
And some risks like, oh yeah, just rumors, nothing. And like tomorrow, Chinese news like
they're establishing it, and maybe I'm gonna be in Financial Times tomorrow.
yeah, probably. Just because of us, all right. Sounds quite nice, our 15 minutes of fame. So yeah, like any Warhol style. Yeah, and what do you think about the whole regulation thing? Well, crypto been with us since the regulation been with us since like 2016, 17. So like some countries are still struggling because when I've been in international lawyers in some countries, they did have the same laws and the same rules in 2016 that they do have right now at the moment. So they just nothing
But
changed.
they've because they've had already very established rules for the financial institutions.
Yeah, right.
Was they've equated tokens to their kind of as a security or something like that, which meant that they didn't have to create anything new. So they just defined what it is and applied the old rules that existed beforehand, which is quite a logical thing to do because you don't really want to establish new sets of rules when you have like for example in the UK, the FCA, Financial Conduct Authority, is I worked in investment banking back in the day, they have so many rules, and you have to pass so many qualifications in order to do even anything in there, So I think the logical step for them was to just say, okay, this is part of it now. And, those rules that we've already developed, for hundreds and hundreds of years, for through trial and error, through bust and boom, through some scandals, we're just going to apply those rules that already exist in the market. We already have the professionals who know how to apply those rules. That's what's happened in with Sam Bankman-Fried, because there are some very clear rules that he did not abide by, but those rules existed that you cannot use funds from that are deposited in your account, and you can't trade with them without acknowledging it to other people. You can't use up, that's been documented. And for the last, if you study financial regulation for the last 100 years, that was all done through trial and error. The separation of banks, the retail banks from the investment banks, and Glass-Steagall Act, and, all of those things that happen in America and happen in the UK and happen in Europe, they happen for a reason. And the regulation then was introduced as a reaction to those events, and kind of the markets regulate themselves quite well. And I think they thought, okay, we have this market, and we're just going to apply those rules because, it's been tried and tested. Maybe the market is not there, but let's apply the old rules that we already know that they work, to this ever-emerging landscape.
Yeah, well, let's, you just mentioned America, and I do have some questions here. So, there is constant activity about cryptocurrencies in the US. So what is the overall situation over? So what are they heading to, or heading towards? And what do they have now? Which approaches do they use? So please share your opinion about it.
So first of all, it's not that bad. That's a good thing to understand. Second,
okay, kids, just remember, that's not bad.
Yeah, well, it's there, So, for example, what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried, that was clearly...
For our listeners, yeah, it is FTX Sam Bankman-Fried.
Yeah, FTX scandal that, uses funds in order, to... There were loads of dubious transactions, and those rules were written, decades ago, that you cannot use users' deposited funds, and the FTX was regulated in the US. And that meant that, those rules clearly applied to them. Maybe not all of the rules, but obviously the rules that say if you deposit something into a financial platform, for example, like eToro or, the stock exchange or something like that, the people who to whom you deposit those money, they cannot use this money without your consent and invest it into dubious, risky investments. that has been established very long time ago. And the fact that, like any person with any, like, I knew that when I was in my last year of economics degree, either he was very stupid, which could be the case, but people were saying that he was probably the smartest person on earth. Maybe there is a borderline there, he did something very, very stupid and very, very wrong, and that was written down in the federal level laws. So what's important to understand about America, I think, is the fact, the way that regulation is structured in America. So you have federal laws, the laws that are passed by the Senate and the House of Representatives. So those laws cover everything in America. So, and then they have state level laws. So there are 52 states in America. Correct me if I'm wrong, there might be more, not sure, but 50 something states in America, and each state can regulate, they can create their own laws as long as they do not contravene the federal laws or the Constitution. So they could literally create any single law that they want, as long as it doesn't go against the federal law or as long as it doesn't go against the Constitution. Very simple. So when this kind of new crypto, and there are some laws which are federal laws which kind of cover the financial institutions and blah, 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 blah. So what you have in America at the moment, you have some states that regulate cryptocurrencies and some states that don't regulate cryptocurrencies. So for example, Wyoming it regulates cryptocurrencies, but it's the least regulated cryptocurrency state. So there are some states that don't have any rules at all, and you can literally go there and open up an exchange because it doesn't regulate it, it's not against the law, and you can do whatever you want as long as it doesn't go against the law. So for example, if you want to go to Wyoming, you have to register for the money transmitter license, for example, that we have in Point Bay, and then you have to register for some other things, and that means that you are able to provide the services within that state. But then you have states like New York, which has literally a pack this big of regulations, what cryptocurrencies can and cannot do, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, it would take, it would take years for somebody to get a license to operate in New York, for example. So that's the difficulty. So for example, in Europe, they have a caveat for that law. They say if something is legal in one state and it doesn't go against the rule in another state, so for example, something is legal in Lithuania and it's not illegal in, for example, Malta, if you are within the European Union, you can operate in Malta. So I can register a company in Lithuania, get a license to operate as an exchange in Lithuania, and I could go to France and operate there. But in the US, it's different. So you have to get everything in every single state, which is incredible. Like, it goes like, for example, if you have ever tried to hire somebody out of state, so for example, if you have a company registered in Wyoming and you want to hire somebody who lives and pays taxes in California, you can't. You just can't. You have to establish a company in California, and only then you can hire that person because they have different they have different taxes, they have different laws with regards to workers' rights, holiday pay, maternity leave, and etc., etc. So it's that segmented. We think that America is just this one country. It's not. It's many, many, many states together, and you have to adhere to every single individual law, and what is illegal in one state could be legal in another state. What they charge taxes in one state, they don't charge taxes in another state. What could be considered a kind of a jail time offense in one state is not an offense in another state. So you can literally, that's why they have those, if you watch
death penalty states, some of them.
Exactly, death penalty states and in some states, the abortion is legal. In some states, the abortion is illegal, because it's now decided on the state level. So the same thing works with the cryptocurrency regulations, because there is no federal regulation. That means that every single company has to get licensed in all of the 50 plus states, which is like impossible. It would cost you millions. Like Binance can do that. Coinbase can do that. If you are a small company, that's impossible. Even we, with quite healthy budgets for legal work, we like, and lawyers are expensive. Our fame.
Yeah. But well, I just got the idea that it could be, like a fun game, go to all the states, collect all the licenses, like just do it. It's like a lifetime job, Yeah,
exactly. Well, that's what kind of, I think only 2 or 3 of them managed to get like 40 something licenses. And then Biden said that as long as you have at least half of the licenses for half of the states, that means that you're able to operate in all of the states, which is kind of legally, they haven't framed it correctly, but he said, which kind of has no legal basis, that as long as you have half of the licenses for the states, you completed the bingo by half, you can operate in other states. So now I think there is a big call for a federal level regulation. But quite honestly, if they cannot regulate abortions on the federal level at the moment, I doubt that they would go out and regulate cryptocurrencies on a federal level. But I think it is long overdue, and this is something that they will have to do at one point or another. And I think something horrible like FTX will have to happen, in order to I think we will have to experience another FTX scandal where millions of people will lose, millions and millions and millions of money, in crypto assets for the government to do anything about it. But I think that is what is happening in the United States. And obviously this year we had quite a lot of cases from the Security and Exchange Commission and their counterparts, that were arguing that, one government organization was arguing that, I can't remember what it was, but, one of them was arguing that this, I think it was Tether, that one of them was a security, and then another government organization was arguing that it is a utility, and if they cannot get the same line within their own government departments, we have no hopes at all. So I think, but I don't think it's their number one priority. And I do think that something horrible will have to happen for something like a Glass-Steagall Act, to come into force and regulate everything within it. So I think that's what is happening there.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I'm still thinking that we could probably, shift the world's order with this AMA session if somebody, gonna do this YouTube shorts with your words, like, like about China, about Hong Kong, about like, well,
but, maybe
America is one country, but it's not. And like, if you take it out from the context, we can shift some, we can do some moves over here, and shift some ideas.
Well, I don't know, maybe they would show this interview in 5 years and they would say, well, actually, exactly what I was saying did happen,
Right. Where's the genius? And you're like, yeah, I'm here. Well, I was here all the time. Smart me 5 years ago. Yeah, right. Thanks. We have the US, and let's speak about Europe. They do have this MiCA proposal, and the whole legislation, not just the proposal. What did they actually adopted? And this MiCA, is it a good or a bad thing for crypto? What do you think about it?
I think any kind of clarity is a good thing. because I think there is nothing worse as because if they set the rules, even if the rules are this thick, like they have in New York, if there are rules, you know how to work within those rules, but if there aren't any rules, that means that you have to kind of invent things and kind of interpret things in your own way, and obviously that leads into things that happen to the FTX, because you can bend the rules in one way and you can bend the rules in another way. I think regulation is good, over-regulation is bad probably, but I think at the moment where we have no regulation at all, and we have very stringent regulation, I would probably meet them somewhere in the middle. But I think, the regulation in Europe is not that stringent. It's a framework. And, it constitutes a unified regulatory sector, so, once you obtain a license in the EU, you will be able to operate within all of the European states. Because I think the problem was that, all of the big players like Germany, France, Italy, well, formerly the UK, but nonetheless, they have their own very stringent financial rules, regulations. But then it only takes for some small country like Lithuania to come in, establish a license, and that's it. That means that you are able to operate within all of the states, within 27 states of the European Union, which is kind of weird. That if you, for example, if you are like Germany or France, when you have your own stock exchanges and you have hundreds of pages of regulations on how you have to regulate the financial markets, and then some company can open literally for like $10,000, could go and open a company in Lithuania and operate within all of your states. That's kind of weird. And then another problem was that regulations differed from one state to another. So you would have, most companies were registered in Lithuania or Estonia, and their regulation is kind of similar. It used to be quite lenient in Estonia, but then they changed the rules about the company presence and about the way that you have to keep the data, because beforehand it was literally like a piece of paper from the police saying that you're able to do that. So, but now it's quite well regulated. And then you have places like Malta, where you have to have very large deposits, you have to have an office, you have to have employees, you have to have an AML officer, blah, 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 blah. So as a crypto company, it's like a free market, You come in and you have a company that requires like €1 million deposit. You have a company that requires an office and some employees there. Or you have a company which requires nothing at all, like in Lithuania, where you just have to pay the taxes and kind of maintain some paperwork once in a while. So obviously everybody opened their companies in Estonia first, and then when they kind of tightened up the rules, they started shifting their companies to Lithuania. So obviously that wasn't a sustainable way of doing things in the EU. So they decided to regulate it on the state level, which is a good thing. And they've put in some very clear rules about the way that you have to record the personal data, which is incredibly important. You have to record the addresses, you have to record the transactions, and the European Bank and the Europol, if there is some kind of question or some kind of money laundering, people will be able to come in and kind of to access all of this data. There is a threshold on, like they do for most of the banks. So for example, if you want to deposit, I don't know, €100, you don't have to pass anything at all. But if you, I think, want to deposit more than 1,000, or maybe it's slightly more, then the bank has to record, where you got they have to get your passport, they have to get your address. And if the transaction is more than €10,000, that means that you have to report it to the relevant state authorities. So that's a similar thing that they have in the US. For example, if like any bank in the world, so if you have a US, if you have a dollar account in any, for example, European bank, and if you want to make a transaction of more than $10,000, the bank has to report it to America. So they've introduced the same rules within this framework. So it's pretty much reporting. It's about keeping the data, and it's about anti-money laundering. So you have to keep the data. You have to keep the logs of what person did. You have to keep their passports. You have to have stringent systems where you keep, the passport details and the personal details. And the last thing I forgot, it's about, I think that's pretty much where it is, and pretty much kind of established a level playing field of saying that, if a government agency will come over, we want to request that information. So that would be kind of all relevant, but it's not active yet. They've established this framework, but it's not, they haven't enacted it in full yet. So we're still going to be seeing some developments, and maybe there are going to be some additions to those rules.
All right. So if I got you right, that your position here is that the regulation is good, right? And the EU regulation is good due to the multiple factors that we have here. Well, I do have the same ideas, because if you do not have any regulation, the legit business cannot be legit. And I do have one client. He's from Hungary, if I'm not mistaken, and he was he's like in his 60s, and he's like a proper citizen, and he wants to pay his taxes. And he told me the story that he wanted to open an account to register a company, and it was not possible to do. So eventually he said, well, I really tried. I tried indeed for like half a year or like almost a year. And eventually, he just doing this thing in crypto. Well, the whole thing. So he's got a crypto project, and he's paying his salaries and all his costs, everything in crypto. Well, that is the the result if you do not have this regulation, because eventually the states cannot raise taxes, to collect taxes from the people, and the people, these like decent citizens, they cannot legally operate. So they're in this like gray shady zone all the time, which is not a good thing for both parties here.
A lot of companies, that's one thing that you mentioned, quite a lot of companies want to have crypto accounts, and it's very, very hard to establish. Binance are doing crypto accounts and a couple of other major exchanges, but passing their KYC, passing their KYB is incredibly, incredibly hard. And quite a lot of companies want to do crypto processing, and they want to get the payments in crypto, because quite a lot, they say that it's 300 million people, which if we think that, there are 7 billion people around the world, which is quite a large number, 300 million people have some kind of crypto. So tapping into that market is probably the next thing that the companies will be doing very, very soon. And one of the it's not an industrial espionage or anything like that, but what I like to do is to monitor the job market, what big companies are hiring for. So, obviously like 3 or 4 years ago, big four companies like the EY, PwC, KPMG and blah, 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 they started hiring crypto consultants. I don't know whether they're any good or anything like that. But about a year ago, Visa and MasterCard started hiring quite a lot of people from the industry. And I just find it very interesting because they don't announce it, but and nobody's talking about it. But if you go to their websites, they're saying like, oh, blockchain developer, I don't know, tokenization person, blah, 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 blah. And why would those people be, why would Visa and MasterCard be hiring those companies? Obviously, they're trying to tap into that market. So I think regulatory wise, they have something going for it. And also, one thing to mention would be probably the debit cards. The debit cards in Europe are now fully operational, and they kind of managed to put it within the EU regulation. I think it's kind of very dubious in other jurisdictions like America and outside of the European Union. But I think everybody, I go around my city and everybody is using Revolut or Wire cards, and everybody is using them. It's somewhat related to crypto, but I think, those are European banks that are established in Germany or Lithuania again, and they operate within all of the states within the European Union because, people can convert crypto, people can trade crypto on their apps. And I think it's a huge market that we're opening up. And I think with clearer regulation in the EU and the US, and I think they would have to start it, because if the EU will regulate it, I think the US will follow, and then all of the countries around the world will probably copy their regulations if they work out, because they don't want to introduce some kind of novel regulation that that would be quite hard to control. And regulation is quite a questionable thing, because they would want to see how it will work in other countries. And if they will see that, okay, this regulation works in the EU, with billions and billions and trillions of, trillion-pound economy, it's a huge continent. And if it works there just fine and people are not losing money and all of the institutions are working perfectly, why can't a country like, I don't know, South Africa or Niger or, Mexico or Brazil introduce similar types of regulation there if it works there, just to copy it? So I think if it will work out in Europe, I think America will most definitely look at Europe and copy something, maybe make it slightly harder, because they do like making things a lot harder for everybody, because the lawyers in America have to make money and the consultants have to make money. It's slightly different in the EU, because in the EU, it's more democratized type of situation. But yeah, I'm sure in America they will make it as difficult as possible, that you will have to have an accountant and a lawyer, in order for you to file taxes. But I think that's where it is heading at the moment.
All right. Yeah. Well, Vlad, the thing is that it's already 47 minutes past, and we have around 15 minutes. Okay. So I do have, I do truly enjoy the summer session with you and the whole discussion. And I suppose that we could keep going, for a couple of hours, because we have like 5 or 7 questions. So I'm gonna skip some of them. And well, what do you think? Well, since we discussing the world, as a whole, let's finish with this question. So, which regions do you think actively contribute to cryptocurrency development, or like engage them with them in some way? So we discussed US, the Europe. You mentioned Dubai, you mentioned China. So what else?
Well, we only have Japan left. We have some regulation, some good regulation in Singapore, and it's one of the biggest growing markets as well. Quite a lot of Asian companies that wasn't able to fit in within the frameworks in Japan or in Hong Kong. Well, Hong Kong is now becoming more lenient, so they went on to Singapore, but Singapore is they have very stringent regulations, audits and stuff like that. If you want to be regulated there, first of all, it costs a lot of money. And second of all, you have to open an office, and it's all very difficult, but nonetheless, it is well regulated. But yeah, I think Japan is looking quite favorably at the moment. They're trying to introduce, like most countries, like as I mentioned, Russia, like some countries in Central America, they're trying to introduce the tokenized version of the Japanese yen, so JPYC coin, Japanese coin, I suppose, so that would be, I think, a welcome change as well, with all of the bigger, like, as I mentioned again, in the UK, they're trying to do similar things. There are very good talks about the crypto euro as well. So maybe we will see this kind of resurgence of kind of major crypto. So we already have the dollar, in all of its various forms, USDC, USDT, BUSD, blah, 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 blah. So I think we will see most definitely the pound, the euro, and the fact that Japan has already announced the JPYC is a very good thing. And they also changed the laws with regards to the way that they regulate the crypto exchanges and the way that they tax them, which I think is a very welcome change as well, because Japan is a very high tax country, so they've reduced the crypto tax gains from 55% to a flat rate of 20%, 55%. It's a very high amount, even for Europe. So because people made quite a lot of profit, well, people also made quite a lot of losses. But in Japan, you can't account for the crypto losses. You can only account for the crypto profits, which I think is very unfair. So they've reduced the taxes from 55% on a proportional scale to a flat rate of 20%, which I think is quite welcome. What else? They changed some things about the accounting, so you are able, because when they introduced those laws, people already made some profits, so you can carry on some of your profits and losses from the gains and the losses that you've made beforehand. When the regulation wasn't introduced, they've updated the way that they regulate crypto to crypto transactions, so they're not taxed at all. And they said that there is going to be no tax on small cryptocurrency payments. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm presuming it's something like if you want to pay for your coffee with some crypto. So I think Japan is very good because they see that people are engaging in it. They have their own exchange, and they kind of adopt the way that they do it. And they see that, if you have 55% tax, people wouldn't probably declare, their crypto gains because it's still quite a decentralized system. But if you reduce the taxes, I think it's called the curve, Laffer curve. So in economics, there is this concept of Laffer curve, which means that when you increase the taxes, less people are starting to pay taxes, and the tax revenue goes down. So you have to find the perfect spot on that curve where your tax supply meets the tax demand. So probably they've realized that nobody was declaring their capital gains on crypto at 55%. So I think they will have quite a lot more revenue coming in with all of this crypto liberalization, with 20% tax. So maybe people will declare it more. So I think it's a very, very welcome thing. And in Portugal, they're doing a very similar thing as well. Quite a lot of crypto bros moved to Portugal because of the way that they account, because they consider it as being a currency, so it's not taxed at all as well. So I think it's a good thing, overall.
All right, Japan was unexpected, actually. I mean, I've never heard of Japan related to crypto, and well, thanks for sharing your ideas and like giving me and our listeners and viewers as well. Let's not forget about them. These profound ideas. Could you share your thoughts on the future of point pay? What are you looking forward? What are you expecting? So it's, I just want to know more because you just given us so much, and I think it would be unfair not to ask about your company and about your plans in general. So what are you looking for?
So we had a major platform update. We've redesigned our exchange. We've redesigned our apps completely this summer. So with this new update, we have, we've had flocks of users, tens of thousands of users coming into our platform, registering on our website, registering in our social media. At the beginning of the summer is not over. We still have a couple of 6 days to go. So we had about 28,000 on our Telegram chats. Now we have 45,000, which is quite a big change if you think about it. And we had tens of thousands of users joining our platform, experiencing the new interfaces we've created for everybody. So that's a good thing. And what was evident, of course, was that we've only started kind of promoting ourselves very actively only at the beginning of the year. We got listed on CoinGecko in January this year, and I think we were 120th in January, number 80 in February, number 50 in the beginning of the summer, and last weekend we've hit number 19. You know, in terms of the user engagement and everything there. So, you know, we're moving very, very quickly among the ranks, and I think you will see us in top 10 very, very, very soon, hopefully.
Yeah, I can help you with that. I mean, BR Group can help you with that. If you want to see yourself in top 3, just let me know. You're gonna be there tomorrow or even today, so no worries.
Deal. But yeah, so but yeah, Point-Pay growing day by day. Everybody is enjoying our interfaces. We're going to be introducing quite a lot more marketing activities, you know, trading competitions, some referral program changes as well. We're not as active now, but you know, we're obviously planning for the end of the crypto winter, you know, the beginning of the crypto spring, and hopefully we'll bloom like a big blue flower out of you know, the rubble, like a phoenix of, you know, all of the crypto banks and the crypto companies that managed to fail within the last year. So that's my pitch. Go and join pay.io.
Yeah, that's good. All right, thanks Vlad. Thank you. I truly appreciated this AMA session. Well, as a host and as a, well, kind of a speaker at the same time, I do feel that we have this, you know, synergy and like chemistry. So, you know, we can chit chat about everything. Well, guys, actually, we did have like 8 questions, and for this hour, and we were planning to done all of them in like 40 minutes. So in 40 minutes, we only discussed 3.
Yeah, I'm terribly sorry. You know, if you get me regulation for hours.
I'm the same, you know, I'm exactly the same. I'm so, you know, chatterbox. So I can chat about these things all day long. Oh, right, regulation. Oh, what about Hong Kong? Oh, yeah, what year was that? Okay, this economic theory. All right, this, you know, how many states do they have in US? I got it. Well, we're exactly the same in this kind of thinking. So, well, I'm really appreciating. And thanks to all the listeners and viewers. And we're gonna see you soon next week. And now I'm gonna stop the stream. Thanks, guys. Bye. So let's say bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much for listening to my dribble. Bye.